Perfect. All right, that should be good. Thanks again for doing this. I really appreciate you, dude.
Thank you so much for reaching out. It means a lot, man.
Yeah, dude, of course. You're probably like the perfect person for this, you know, because you record yourself on like a daily basis for like your original music and stuff, and everything's always like recorded really well. Your ideas are great. Everything just makes sense, you know, which is a lot to ask for a lot of people.
Yeah, well, thanks, man. I'm trying my best over here, so when I send it to you, it's like all you got to do is like make it sound the way you do. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. For the people that don't know you, why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself and give them a little bit of background about your professional history and what you do and all that.
Right on, man. So for anybody who doesn't know, hello, my name is Xander Raymond Charles, my full government name. And I'm a guitar player, and I started out on YouTube and then, you know, did all the other subsequent social media platforms. Like Instagram is probably my best one. I guess now it's surpassed YouTube for the time being, but then also like TikTok and, you know, all the other stuff. As well as like I create original, like mostly instrumental music, guitar focused. And then as of late, I've been given a couple opportunities to tour around the U.S., most recently with a band called For the Fallen Dreams. So all that encompassing, I'm just trying to do my best to piece it all together and make it all work, you know?
Yeah, of course. To just give you like some positive reinforcement, like you're doing a lot, and you know, all your hard work is paying off, and these things don't come to anybody, you know, they come to the people who put a lot of time and effort in, and when people do see people succeeding, it's typically not their first go at it, you know.
Yeah. Well, thank you, man. And you know, if I could do the same for you, like you pump me up and motivate me every single day, like straight up. I'm not just saying that because you said something nice. Like, just the opportunity is here, so I'm just gonna say it. Like, you've always pushed me, and you know, we found each other like 5 years ago. I just saw you do a drum cover, and I was like, I need to know this dude. I wanna work with him. And then, like, you know, half a decade later, we've become pretty good friends. So it's a cool story how it all kind of came together.
Yeah, dude. Which is funny because that is actually how we met.
Yeah.
You reached out to do like a YouTube cover together, and I recruited my buddy Thomas as well. And you know, we've just stayed in touch ever since. I did a couple like mixes and stuff for your last band as well. And once you branched out and started doing the solo stuff, it just continued on. And you know, now you're this massive social media sensation.
Oh, thanks, man. It doesn't feel like it. I don't. You know, it's kind of hard to see any sort of reach when you're in, like, you know, in the loft in your house. But
yeah, of course.
It's really cool. Like, you know, when I get to go out and travel and meet people, it's the coolest thing, man. So, you know, it's a joy to start to see like
the fruits of your labor.
Yeah. You know, funny. I was trying to think of that phrase right now, but I didn't want to butcher it, so I scrapped it. I was just like, I'm not saying that. Yeah.
No, dude, it's all good.
Yeah.
So obviously our discussion today is going to be a little bit more geared about your process and how you do stuff. So just starting off, I always tell people before they even come into the studio, you know, like, have your guitar set up, make sure everything is like, you have fresh strings on everything, you know, just come in prepared. Is there any sort of like prep that you do for your instruments before you record, or do like content or anything?
Yeah, I guess the main one is just a string change. I'm not the most on the ball with that. Like, I try to get my money's worth, but like, you gotta have good strings. They just sound better. But like, apart from like in terms of like setup and stuff, I don't have any sort of like measurements or any sort of like, it has to be like 3 millimeters here or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just literally all feel. Like, I would like to think, as it pertains to drums as well, like some things just feel how they should, or like you're kind of accustomed to it. So like, there's like a couple guitars that are my go-to, and like the one that I always seem to send you more often than not is a little cheapy Squier baritone that costs, at the time, it cost like $400, but like now they're super rare because like a band called Loathe made them really popular, and like it just sounds so ridiculous. So like, it doesn't necessarily play the greatest, but it just feels good to me, and like I'm super accustomed to it, and I've been using it literally almost exclusively for like that low tune kind of clanky sound for the better part of like 4 years, give or take.
And I will say, on my side, that guitar sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's a little buzzy and a little noisy, but
it kind of adds to it.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it adds a little grime and grit to it. Yeah, it's not super polished.
Because you know, a lot of the times the people that come in, they'll ask me, or they'll have like, you know, really expensive guitars or really nice guitars. And even for me personally, though, what's on my rack of guitars is not multi-$1,000 guitars. It's a made in Mexico Fender, and like a very mid-level Yamaha, and they're probably between like $300 to $600 each, you know. But what's more important to me is their tuning stability and just feeling right, you know. And sound wise, I feel like a good guitar is going to sound and play like a good guitar, you know. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, and so you can hear from my end, like I've done a lot of like R&D, like A/B and stuff, and like you know, because I have a couple expensive, like my favorite one that's expensive is like a vintage like late 70s Les Paul Custom. Like that was a dream guitar. It's like a natural one. I took it on the road, but like that guitar doesn't objectively sound better because it has a collector's price tag on it. It's like it literally sounds no different than like if I was to get like an Epiphone Les Paul, something a cheaper equivalent to it. So yeah, dude, it's like if it sounds good, it is good, and like that's where that ends. Like it doesn't have to have a price tag. You don't have to hit some sort of hierarchy, some sort of echelon for it to like sound better. Now, if you buy something, you invest something, and you really enjoy playing it, and it makes you subconsciously, like placebo effect, makes you feel like you're playing better, then that's valid too. But like it's not like it's if so then type of thing. Like if I get $3,000 worth of a guitar, then I'm gonna have the best sound ever. It's really quite irrelevant at the end of the day.
Yeah, it really is. Speaking from the drum side as well, it's the same thing. It's like a mid-level drum kit is about like $1,000, and the difference between a $100 kit or a $300 kit and a $1,000 kit is huge. But the difference between a $1,000 kit and a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 kit, it's maybe like 5%.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you're willing to pay the money for that difference, all power to you. But like you said, a lot of the times it's really just like a placebo effect to almost trick yourself into wanting to play more.
Yeah. And I truly think that has value, and that like makes you more creative, I think it makes you play better. Like there's like an old sports analogy. Like if you look good, like if you look sick in your uniform, you feel good, and then you're going to want to play well. Same thing with like stage attire or playing an instrument. Like if it subconsciously makes you feel better, I think that actually does like add to the performance as well.
Yeah, it's more of a psychological thing than an actual sonic benefit that you're going to see from that. Yeah, 100%.
For sure.
I know you said you reach for that Squier most often, but is guitar choice like important when you are like writing or recording or creating stuff?
I would say no. Because, like, again, because going back to what we just talked about, like, the whole, like, mindset of, like, oh, I want to get the one that I like. But a lot of times, like, all the stuff that I send you or the stuff I make for Instagram, like, some silly riff or, like, a demo for, like, a product, man, I'll spend hours sometimes, like, on a drum loop just trying to come up with something, and it just doesn't happen that day. You know, I don't know if it's luck of the draw or what, or it's a good day, you know, my brain's working right, like, something will just click, and it's irrelevant to what's actually in my hands sometimes. So, yeah, like, it doesn't really matter. Like, I found that guitar because everybody was telling me about it, like, in my comments and stuff, and it just so happened that I absolutely loved it. But there's been times where, like, people have told me that insert guitar is great, and then I got it and it just didn't work for me. So the instrument's not really relevant. It's just like what kind of works in the moment and what kind of, like, just how it kind of comes out that day, that week, that time you spent on an arrangement. Like, you know, the guitar's not really the thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, more often than not really.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, 'cause, I mean, that's also reassuring to hear, because, you know, there's a lot of people in studios and stuff who will have just, like, walls and walls of guitars, and they make it seem like that's the thing that you have to achieve towards, you know, like, my goal is to have, like, all the Les Pauls, all the, like, custom shop Fenders, and, like, having them all available to people. But more often than not, when I'm in those sessions, I don't ever see people reach for those. You know, they bring in their own guitar, or they reach for one and they just play that one all day.
Yeah. And something to touch on is, like, I had the opportunity to record with Billy from Biohazard one time, and I just used his guitar because it was like, it's like he was like running the session, and he's like, here, just play this. And, you know, I'm not going to tell Billy no, but, like, it doesn't matter who's in the chair. It's kind of like, for me, I've learned to, like, put the guitar ego to the wayside. Like, it doesn't, it's about the song. It's not about the instrument. Like, nobody cares what the instrument was, unless it's like a super guitar nerd. But, like, the casual listener is like, is it a good song? Is it a good arrangement? It doesn't matter what it was recorded on.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess speaking on, like, the actual recording process, like, what is your personal, like, recording chain when you're doing this kind of stuff? Generally,
it's just right into a DI box. So I have 2 DI boxes.
Yeah, the little passive radio one.
Yeah, dude. I got 2 of those somewhere. I got the green one, which is passive, and I heard on some forum, like, if you have active pickups, go passive, and if you have passive pickups, go active. But
Yeah.
truthfully, there's no audible difference, and sometimes I'm just like lazy, and I'm just like, I won't do that rule of thumb.
Yes.
I'm just like, screw it, like whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally it's just right into a DI box into my interface. Now with kind of the weird stuff that I send you a lot, like where it's like super pitched down.
Yeah.
I'm usually tuned to drop C sharp, which is a pretty higher timbre tuning in the grand scheme of things as it pertains to metal music. But then I'll run that into a Boss SD1, my pedal board's down there, a Boss SD1, and then into the drop pedal, because there's a lot of signal degradation in the DI box, and especially when you tune it down a whole octave, like you're losing all sense of like tone. So like I put an overdrive in there just to give that signal more juice going into the drop pedal, and then into the DI box into my interface. But apart from that, it's with the occasional wah every now and again, it's pretty stripped down. Like no compressors, no no preamp, no nothing. It's just like pretty much as bare bones as it can be.
Nice. And I guess speaking on that, what interface are you usually recording this stuff through?
I'm using a Focusrite 8 Claret Pre.
Okay, nice.
I got it because it's a lightning. I think it's called lightning connection.
Yeah, the lightning bolt.
Yeah. It's not a USB, so it is a little faster, less latency. But I got it because it has like a bunch of different ins and outs. So like I can run it into like my my monitors. I can run it into outboard gear if I want. So like, it was just a way. So like, I also run like my microphone when I'm speaking for YouTube videos through it. So rather than having to disconnect and reconnect, I just got something that had 8 different ins and outs. So like, when I wanted to do the various things, I just clicked the correct input and I'm off and running. So yeah, like guitar's always input 2 for whatever reason. I don't know. It's just always been that. So like, I don't have to change it, and I don't have to like switch around, because I guess strike while the iron's hot. You want to record. You don't want to be spending time plugging things in and unplugging things in.
No, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, it's the same philosophy like in a studio setting. Like, you don't want to have to spend a bunch of time hooking everything up or getting behind something to like do it. Just leave your lines ready, have a patch bay, have all the mics ready, whatever. That way somebody can just come in, hit the ground running. If you're feeling an idea, you don't have to waste like 30 minutes and losing that juice to kind of get rolling.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's all just very, very much streamlined through trial and error and like ease of mind.
100%. I guess once you pass that like front part, what DAW like are you using to record all this stuff?
I've been using Logic exclusively for like 7 years. I started on GarageBand. I got a MacBook because at the time when I first started, I was doing my video stuff and my audio, my music stuff all in the same house. And GarageBand came free with it. And then I did a little bit of research because like after 2 months of GarageBand, I realized it was very limiting. So then I just like realized Logic was GarageBand on steroids essentially. Like it's like the big version of GarageBand. And that's all I've really been using. Like I've had familiarity with like Pro Tools and like Cubase and stuff, but for whatever reason, it's just, I guess I'm accustomed to it. I've just always been using Logic.
From my point, because everybody always, and it's mostly the engineers who do this, they're typically scoffed when you're not on Pro Tools, Yeah,
dude.
It's really weird, but most musicians that I work with nowadays are in Logic, Cubase, Reaper, or Studio One. It's like very rarely are they themselves on Pro Tools, and when they are in Pro Tools, I feel like they have more trouble than any other person I work with.
Yeah, dude. Funny story, like this is years ago, I was like, I want to be in the industry. I gotta learn to do Pro Tools. And like, I got it like on a trial or something. Dude, I was just like DAWs are pretty intimidating no matter which one it is. It's like, what am I even doing? What am I looking at? But dude, Pro Tools was like so challenging to cut things, to trim things, to duplicate, to record. Like I was like, dude, am I dumb or like it just was so, it was just so, I mean, maybe a little bit, like it was just so like it was just like so not worth, like the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. I was just like, dude, like what am I truly getting out of this? Like,
no, yeah, of course,
not enjoyment. I could tell you that I wasn't enjoying myself, so I wasn't getting that. So yeah, I just use Logic, and I see no change indefinitely. Like if Logic,
you're comfortable on it.
Yeah, if Logic is like this or like some variation for the next, if I'm lucky, 50 years, like
y'all just stick with it.
Yeah, I'm just like, dude, just let it rip. It doesn't bother me.
I'm the exact same way with Reaper. I've been a Reaper user for like 12, 13 years at this point. It's as complex or as simple as you want it to be. I know all the console commands. I know how to do it. If something goes haywire, I immediately know how to fix it,
Yeah.
It's just about the ease of use and being comfortable with whatever software you're using. It doesn't really matter. There's no difference in quality from one to the other.
Yeah, that was kind of more of a question you kind of answered. I was like, I always wondered if like, do some sound better? Do some sound more professional? And to the best of my knowledge, no.
No, I think maybe in the early days, like I'm talking like the early days of DAW, maybe like in the 90s, early 2000s, maybe there was a sonic difference. I don't know. I wasn't recording back then,
No, we were in elementary school.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But I know Glenn Fricker from Spectre. I think he's done a video showcasing the difference between different DAWs. And if I recall right, he even did like a null test, seeing if they phase out and what the difference is. And if I'm recalling right, there was no difference. So it just completely phased out. What you do in one DAW does not matter in another. And from my personal experience working with a lot of people, I don't even ask what DAW they're in. I just give them like a tutorial on how to export their stem so I can import it. And then that's it. Like unless something sounds horrendously off, which is usually user error, there's not really much that like the DAW is going to benefit or detract you from doing. Well, before we move on, is there any like templates that you use while you're writing or recording?
Nope, I start from scratch every single time.
Oh, you're a madman. You're a madman.
Well, I learned like I'm pretty like weird just in life. Like I'm pretty unique, and like when I'm recording, like I'm so quick with like the key commands and the key changes and setting it up. Like I can get 2 guitar tracks and the Superior Drummer 3 track up and running in like 3 minutes tops. If I'm not like 120 seconds. Like
just open, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, this, and this. All right, I'm done. So like, I feel like that amount of time, maybe it would save me a minute using a template. But like, I never started with templates, so like I'm very much a creature of habit, I guess. Where like, I never had a template, so I just do that every single time. And then like, I always find myself like, God bless you, man. Like sometimes I send you a bunch of like synths and like hip hop things, and like, I just like always just add as I'm going, as it's building and as I'm growing it. So like, I feel like if I had a template, I feel as though I would have to like it's almost like, I don't even know what the word is. Like, I have to have these things. Yeah. Whereas like sometimes it's just like two guitars and a bass and like 4 tracks, and then and then sometimes there's like 30 with like a bunch of weird noises and stuff. So like, it's all just like what I'm trying to do in the moment, and it's not, my results are not indicative of like this template is here, so I'm gonna make sure I'm set up, because like, I don't know, it's just very spur of the moment, very, I guess creative is the right word.
No, yeah, 100%, because I mean, you're basically just pulling things up as you need them, as opposed to trying to, like you said, fit the puzzle pieces onto this pre-existing template and working with the stuff that's on there instead of trying to branch out and try new things,
Yeah, because like, what if I had like an elaborate, like we'll call it the big template, like where it has 30 tracks on the rip. I was like, now I have to like subconsciously fill that space.
Even if you don't, you're just like, oh, well, I have 30 things, I recorded on these 2, but mentally when you're going to look for them or trying to change something, now you have 30 tracks that you have to dig through, instead of just being like, these are my guitar left and right.
Yeah,
and that's my drums, and that's it,
Yeah.
So simplicity is the key. That on my side, it's the same thing. Like I try every couple months, I try to simplify and get rid of plugins and extra tracks and things like that, just so there's not a bunch of extra faff on there.
Right, for sure.
I guess speaking of, since you're like always changing it up, do you spend a lot of time like hunting down tones, or do you really just stick to like a few tried and true?
When I'm working with you, I literally stick to 2 guitar plugins. Before I talk about the guitar plugins and MIDI bass, I program all my bass now, just because it sounds so sick. It sounds so much better than anything I could have ever done. Mm-hmm. And at first it was almost like a pride thing, like, oh, am I cheating, or am I? But I already have MIDI drums half the time anyway, and I'm not a bass player. And like, what I learned that I started to do is like I don't like the key switches on like MIDI tracks. They don't really align to like the human element so much. Mm-hmm. Like I'm huge on pinch harmonics, as you know. It's like, I like parody myself sometimes. Like I'm like almost making fun of myself with how elaborate I get. So like, what I've learned like with the MIDI bass is like, whenever it's like a pinch harmonic or a weird bend or a dive bomb with a whammy bar, like I'll just sit out on the bass, and then I'll just make the bass hit the low chugs or like the power chords. So like, there's like when those hit, they hit harder audibly, because they sit out during like the weird noises, like the harmonics and stuff like that. So that's something I kind of just stumbled on with like tones with bass. But in terms of guitar, it's either STL Tones is Andy James because it never crashes.
Nice.
And yeah, that's like, it's just the initial like open it up. That's the tone I always use. I don't mess with it. And then recently, I was lucky enough to work with Mike Stringer from Spiritbox, and he has a Mixwave Mike Stringer amp sim. And
nice, yeah.
I have a bank of presets in there, and I just always use the one that's called Angry, because it sounds.
You're making angry music.
Yeah, it was a good name choice by me. Yeah, so like that one's just always my favorite, and from there I don't spend time tweaking using the fake mics and the cabs, because at the end of the day, every time I send it to you, it's just a straight DI anyway. So it's just like, as long as I can get something that has workflow and my computer can handle it, that's all I really care about at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess that leads to my next question, because on the topic of tones, like, do you care what is used on like the post side? Like, so when you do send files over, like, do you care? Do you want to know? Like, is that even a thought that really crosses your mind, or is it just like, oh, I just want the sound that's most appropriate for this song? You know?
Yeah, I literally don't care. I mean, you and I talked last week or something like this, and like, I brought it up for anybody who's watching. I was just like, dude, know what's funny? Like, I have no idea what my guitar tones are, and you've never told me. And he was like, Fernando's like, well, it's actually. I was like, no. Don't tell me. It's like, it's a running thing now. Like, we're gonna see how long this is. So like, dude, like, because at the end of the day, man, like, what you send and what you deliver, the product is just like so amazing. So it doesn't matter. Like, because like, what if you told me it was something and then like, I don't know, like, let's say it was amp brand C, and I don't like amp brand C, for example. Like, I like, subconsciously, that's not my flavor for whatever reason. Now I'm gonna not like it as much, because mentally I'm like, oh, you should have used amp brand A, because that's what I like. You know, like, it would just be such a head trip. And like, I'm glad that like, I don't know in a way, because it sounds so sick no matter what it is, and no matter what tuning or what effect I throw at you, you always just like make it sound super awesome. So it's like, yeah, dude, like, really don't have any sort of marriage towards a specific amp brand or tone, like, which is weird, because guitar players, they like love to talk, oh, it was my modded, blah blah blah, and like, stock tubes and all, all this verbiage, and like, sure, that's really cool, but for me, since I'm doing this all remotely, I could care less at this point. It's like, it doesn't matter to me what it is.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess to speak to that same point, like, because I see it all the time, like, recording people and working with people. If it's someone that I've worked with before, they never care. They're always like, you know what you're doing. I don't care if it's real amp heads, like, to my left, or if it's like the Kemper that's just off screen, Like, they really don't care. They're just like, what matters is the final product, But when I do have objections, it's usually people that I haven't worked with before, and they're like reaching out. They're like, hey, we want to record with our 90s dual rec, or like, we want to bring in our specific Mesa oversized cab, or like whatever, whatever it may be. And I'm always just like, well, all right, you can do that if you want to waste like several hours, like setting everything up, hunting tones, doing all that. Or you can just come in, record a DI, do it through one of these that I can promise you sounds very similar. And like you said, the average listener isn't going to be able to tell or care what tone it is,
Yeah, I would say the advanced listener doesn't even discern the difference. Like, I'd like to think I'm pretty knowledgeable on tone. I'm literally sitting in this chair every day messing with either real amps or sims or whatever, and like, I don't think I could do a blind taste test. I really don't think I could. Like, maybe I get it right every now and again, but like, it's not such like a one for one, oh, that's definitely that, or that's definitely not that. It's like, the technology's so good. And one thing that I value for you is like, you're just kind of like, I got it. Like I instill trust in you, because like, you're like, you've got it. You know what you're doing, and like, there's never a doubt in my mind. ever of like, is it going to sound how I want it to sound? Because like I'm asking you to do the job, you know, like just like a little sidestep. Like I'm fortunate enough, very thankful that like every now and again a company will ask to like demo a product of theirs, which I'm super thankful for. And so like I said, yeah, sure, no problem. I'll have it out by this date. And then a lot of times, not a lot, every now and again the transaction will fall apart because then like they'll be like, all right, it needs to be, you got to do this, this, and this. Make sure you show this. Make sure you don't do this. Make sure you. It's like, if you're so specific about it, you just do it, you know? Like, and that's fine. That's not like an arrogant statement, but it's like, dude, like, you asked me because of what I do, and now you want me to like change my whole presentation and like my whole flow. And it's like, you know, if you're asking somebody to do a job for you, like, let them do it. You ask them because you like their work, obviously, so let them do their work. So like, don't like that. Like, puts the person doing the job in like this weird, uncomfortable like now I have to do all this, but like that's not what I do. It's like, it's interesting.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, you know, I get it probably way less frequently than you do, but it's the same kind of thing where it's, and thankfully most of the people that reach out to me are like, you know, they're just like, hey, we just like what you do. We're going to send you this. Just give us an honest review or whatever, you know. But I have had times where it's like, hey, do you want to do this? Like full creativity, full whatever. And then as you get the thing or it gets closer, they're like, hey, we're about to send it out. Suddenly all the restrictions and rules and what you can and can't do come up. And at that point, for me personally, I'm just like, all right, I'm just not going to do it. Like, I would just rather not do it.
I know. It's I try to I try to see it from the business standpoint. Like, I get it. You know, you're investing money essentially into me, and I'm very grateful for it. But at the same time, it's like, you know, like there's been a couple times where like I've sent a video to a company and like, okay, we have some notes. We'll send them back to you. It's like, notes? Like
you're like, it's done.
Yeah, like, you know how long that took? Like, I have to like reshoot. Like, that's like 2 days of work. Now I have to do another 2 days. It's a bummer. So yeah, like as it pertains to like recording and stuff, like, you know, if you're hiring an engineer or, you know, somebody running the session, however you want to describe it, you obviously like their work. So like, it's all good. Like, crush it. I promise you. Like, don't worry so much.
Like, and for me, because I'm not really, you know, I don't play guitar. Like, I played a little bit of classical guitar in high school, but my knowledge of playing guitar is like very basic. You know, I can do a couple chords, you know.
Yeah.
But I started out playing bass and drums, and then drums just won out way more. So I was like, I'll just stick with that. And so my bass knowledge and my guitar knowledge is pretty like beginner, you know. So my ear is not married to any of this stuff, you know. It's just like, as a guitar player, I feel like you said, they're often married to brands or certain pieces of gear or pedals or hell, even cables sometimes, you know, it's really weird.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm just like, does this thing create the sound that I need it to? That's it. Yeah. That's all I care about. Like, I'm not coming at it with like, oh, I want this specific tone from like this old 2000s record or whatever. I'm just like, well, I'm just going to mix the drums and then I'm going to dial in the guitar tones to fit, you know, and then that's it.
Yeah, and I think it's funny, like, with amp sims, it's like, they'll have, like, different, like, tubes, power tubes.
Yeah.
And, like I love it. It's cool, but, like, I've never been like, oh, I need these fake 6L6s rather than the fake EL34s, because, like, that's the secret. Dude. It's, like, it's just, it's kind of, dude, it's cool to tweak, and it's fun. It truly is fun, but, like, it's about the end product, truthfully.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess... I feel like we've kind of covered the tones and guitar stuff. So any guitar snobs or anybody who's watching this who might think that all of these things do matter, they kind of don't.
Yeah, as much as for my demographic, as much as I love it, I truly love it to death. But like when it's time to create, it's totally out the window, and that's totally fine. It really is totally fine.
And I guess speaking on like a little bit more on the recording side, how do you like actually sit down and record yourself? Like, I know you mentioned you don't use templates or anything, but like, do you pick out a tempo? Do you pick out a drum beat first? Do you just have like a riff idea and then try to put a drum beat to it, you know?
Yeah, so more often, like I would say like 80% of the time, I always have to write to some sort of drum loop. I find that way more creative and just like, it just feels that much more like powerful rather than a click. Like this noise is not very inspiring. Like it's just not. So
yeah.
I just like to just have some sort of drum loop, and then like all my songs and all my arrangements, however big or long, and for whatever the product is, it always starts with like the initial riff, like in the words of Pantera, the money riff.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like from VH1, Behind the Music. Like that has so much value to it. Like if I always just try to come up with the sickest riff that I can in the moment, and then I build literally everything around that. Like the song you did with Tom Barber, and which you crushed. I was super thankful for that, bro. You did.
Thanks.
It was all good. The initial riff was the first thing I wrote, and like I was just trying to like, how do I bring that back like 3 or 4 times, and like everything in the middle, like gotta have a verse, gotta have a chorus, gotta have a couple breakdowns, but just bring back that money riff as much as you can. So like, yeah, whenever I'm recording and creating, it just starts from that initial, like, this is the signature riff of the arrangement, and then everything else comes after that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because I feel like sometimes people get too caught up, like, oh, I have to start from the beginning. Like, I got to go intro to verse to chorus to, and that's fine if that's your process and that's how it goes. But in my experience, and like you said, sometimes you just got to start with the thing that's most inspiring and then kind of puzzle piece it around it, Yeah. Like, it can be whatever you want it to be after the fact, but if you have a riff or a piece of like music that feels really nice, then just figure out how to make that into like a tangible song, and then you know, refine and work from there. And I guess speaking on that as well, like how do you know and how do you balance like your writing and like creativity time versus knowing when the song is like done and you need to like start recording like the real takes?
So, yeah, like I'll scratch an arrangement, but I've learned like most of either the most popular songs or the ones that I like the most were written in a day.
No, nice.
Yeah, and like, and that's like what I was saying in the beginning of today. It's like when my brain's working that day, it's just a good day, and like the ideas just kind of come out. So yeah, like I kind of just scratch it together. Like, okay, this is feasible. It's like 2 minutes, 30 seconds, 3 minutes, whatever. It's not necessarily finished. And then I'll go back and I'll kind of record linearly from start to finish. Mm-hmm. And then I like sit with it. And then what I do is I start to like just get weird with stuff. Like I'll cut and paste. Like I'll chop a riff up on purpose, and like try to make it more interesting. Like, like, I don't know, if it goes jom, jom, wow, like I'd go jom, wow, jom, 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 like just cut and paste those two things and then record that. Like I'll have, right and left on top of each other, and then I'll have the one I chopped up go, and then I record to that, how I rewrote it, and then I go back up to the top one that I chopped up and record it that way. So now I have that congruent piece. But like, that's something I've kind of done relatively recently, and like that has gotten a lot of cool ideas out of that. Just something to be creative and not be so like I learned I write the same. I think most guitar players tend to write the same riff a lot. Like we have like our natural like thing, our natural tempo riff style, and to break out of that, I've been trying to like, what would happen if I just used the computer to not write it for me, but like if I just did something that I didn't think of and just chop it all up. Yeah. And then like now I have a new arrangement, and then like just redo what I chopped up.
Yeah, dude. It's about using the tools at your disposal in a creative way. Because like ultimately being a musician is like you are a creative, Yeah. And you don't necessarily have to play everything. I mean, I do the same thing for drums. I do the same thing for like people who come in and like write stuff or want to like try stuff out. A lot of times it's because they just can't play the riff, But sometimes it's just like, well, hey, like, just, don't pay attention for like 15 minutes. Let me chop some stuff up and rework some stuff. Yeah. And then you can either like it or hate it and tell me you want me to change it back. And that's totally cool, But like, just give me like 15 minutes to play with this. And if you like it, then we'll keep it,
Right. Yeah. 2 things on that. First up, like, you're talking about like we're creatives and like we should play our instruments, but like I truthfully will have no problem admitting I didn't play that, and like but I wrote it, and like I think that's totally fine. It's just you don't want to blur the line of like trying to show that you're playing something. You don't want to mime it and fake it. Like the song that I just recently sent you. After like the thumping in the beginning, just like the intro, like it has like that lo-fi guitar.
Yeah.
That's all like Odin 2 from, I forget the brand name, Solemn Tones maybe or something like that. That's all MIDI guitar, and I purposely kept that in there because I used that tool to come up with the main hook. I just
okay.
programmed that, and then like I kept it in there as like an Easter egg just for myself, like, you know. And if I ever do a playthrough or a video for it or whatever, I will sit out completely and not play that, because like that was the initial catalyst to me writing that. I was just like, how can I, because the riff's weird, like I go from like 1 to 8 a lot, like, which is pretty challenging on a baritone, but I was like, let's just see if I can do that. And I was able to like do slides into it, in and out, and but that was all indicative of me using a tool to get to that
That's
point.
Crazy. Yeah, because when I got that file, I had no idea.
Yeah, I know.
It just sounded like a lo-fi guitar, and I was like, oh, well, when Ray sends me specific guitar prints of stuff, from my producer side, I'm like, oh, like they probably want this specific kind of tone or this specific effect. I'll just tweak it and I'll make it fit the mix, you know, no biggie. Because especially when it's like something that sounds solid, if it sounds solid, it is solid, you know?
Right.
And so I was just like, all right, I'll reamp the guitars, I'll do a bit of light editing, you know, but that specific lo-fi guitar, I'm just going to pop it in and EQ it and it's done, you know?
Yeah. And the reason why, like, there's like 2 or 3 moments where it comes in and out is because I'm going from picking to thumping. Yeah. So like I needed a break to stop,
to switch,
put my pick in my hand and then get my 2 fingers and do the triplet thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have no problems like admitting that, and I think that's kind of cool and like, you know, something I've never done before.
No, that's awesome, dude.
Yeah, thanks, man. The second thing I was gonna say, you know, you were saying like, let me sit with it for 15 minutes, toy with it, and come back and see if you like it. For me personally, I love it so much when you do that. I don't know if you noticed this. I've never told you like change it back, like, because like to me that means like you actually like you're investing. And so, like, if you like it, I like it, because you actually took time and you had my interest at heart to make it better, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Like, that was super cool, and, like, I love when you do that stuff.
Yeah, dude, I thank you. You know, it's not to say that I'm always right. That's why I always preface it and reach out. I'm like, hey, I changed this stuff. If you don't like it, no hard feelings, you know, because I feel like a lot of musicians, especially, even when they're here physically with me, you know, they're almost like intimidated sometimes, because they're like, oh, this is the first like single or record we're doing, you know, ever. Meanwhile, you have like hundreds of songs or like dozens of records and all this stuff and all these credits under your name. Obviously, you know everything, you know, but it's like, really, no. It's like, you really don't. It's like, we're all just trying stuff out. Yeah. And if you don't like it, just don't be afraid to speak up sometimes, you know? And like, but on that same topic, but the flip side of it, sometimes do trust the people when they're trying to like tell you like, hey, your riff is cool, but, you know.
Yeah, exactly, man. I love it to death when you do that. Like, I will never, I mean, I don't want to say no, I'll shoot myself in the foot, but like, I try my very best, and it's not hard for me, but like, I'm just like, oh, he did something I wouldn't have thought of. But to me, it's like, Fern's got my back. He's not doing that to make it sound worse. He's doing it because he thinks it's a good idea. So that makes it more of a cohesive thing, and like, I value that so much.
Thanks, dude. But yeah, no worries, again, bro. Very important point. When people are offering suggestions, you know, sometimes there is the rogue producer or like bandmate or whatever who is coming at it from like a point of ego where they're like, oh, I need to change something to put my input in this.
Yeah.
But at least for me and in my experience and all the people that I've ever worked with, it's all love, you know? Like, nobody is trying to pull one over on anybody. Nobody's trying to just get their name on something. If they take the time and the care to want to make a suggestion or change something, they're oftentimes doing it out of love because they want to, you know, they want the thing to be the best that it can be in their eyes, you know.
Right,
and
for sure, man.
I remember I did a record with Joshua Wickman, I want to say it was like a 2014, 2015.
Okay.
And it was the last Silence the Messenger record that the band did. And we came into the studio pretty well prepared. We had like 10 or 11 songs. He didn't particularly like the 11th song, so we just cut it. Mm-hmm. And the 10th song, he was like, there's two good ideas in here. The intro's too long, this middle section's weird, this is weird, and we could have thrown it away, but instead we were just like, you know what, let's really think on it. Let's try some ideas out with him, and if he's like, okay, this could work, we'll just stay up all night and rewrite the song and like make it work, you know? And then he came in the next day and we were just like, here you go, here's what we did. Yeah. And we wouldn't have done that had he not given us his input and told us about it, you know?
Yeah.
And we would have just had a kind of mid song on the record.
Right. No, it's awesome. That's awesome. It's cool that, like, you know, it's cool to like just trust people and like just like kind of like you said, put your ego aside. Or I don't want to call it ego because that has like a negative connotation to it, but just like it's okay to have another brain just trying to help you out, you know?
Yeah, of course, dude. And I mean, like once you have like recorded everything, like do you edit any of your stuff, or do you just like try to get the best performances that you can and just send them off?
I try to get as good of a performance as possible, like, but I've never like time aligned my riffs or ever. Like sometimes like to my ears it's kind of sloppy sometimes, but sometimes I'm just like, that's all right, like, because like it's kind of cool, like it's a moment in time like captured, and sure it's not perfect, but if you listen to like old Led Zeppelin or old Van Halen, like there's mistakes all throughout those records, like huge mistakes, but like they're on there, and it's just like, you know, they're some of the best albums of all time. So like I try my best, but sometimes I'm like, it's not laziness, but it's just like, it's like, it was like an 8.5 out of 10, you know, like that's good. That's cool, like, because, you know, I'll take an 8.5 with a little bit of character versus like a 10 that I edited that's like perfect. So yeah,
and that's an important distinction, because I have been in situations where people over edit stuff to death, you know. Yeah. Every like picking transient is the same. Everything is like perfectly on the grid, like everything, you know. And there is some benefits to that if that's like the style or the sound that you're going for. But in most cases, like you said, try to get the performance right. Get it as good as you can. Because on my side, I do end up editing like everybody's stuff. No matter what, everything gets a little bit of editing. But I try to come at it from the point of, you know, I'm going to take this 8.5 and I'm going to tweak it to a 9. Yeah. You know, I'm not trying to tweak it to a 10 because that's inhuman and it's like impossible, you know. But if I can just tighten it up just a hair so like it hits right on time with the drums and everything, and it just leads to a punchier mix and like an overall more cohesive sound. So that's like something that I'm very conscious of. Like I'll just do like a quick edit pass. I'm not like nitpicking every single little thing. Like I'm really just like listening for like weird noises or like cutting off like feedback in between like stops and things like that, or like if everything is hitting on like this big downbeat, I just want to make sure everything's hitting at about the same time, you know.
Right, for sure.
Because I've definitely been in environments where you can actually edit your guitars too perfectly, and then it causes phase issues between the left and the right because they're so close to one another. Like they'll play and then they'll duck out mono, and then they'll come back and then they'll duck back out mono, and it's just like that's just a result of like over editing. So it's like it like for anybody watching this, like I will be going through and doing like a process video of like how I record through Reaper and stuff, just to kind of give people an idea of how I do stuff. But yeah, it's an important distinction to make. And like Ray said, there's tons and tons of records that have mistakes and flubs and human qualities to them, and I guarantee you more people have listened to those than the edited to death perfection like modern metal records that are coming out nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. So that's I grew up on classic rock, and that's what I listen to. Like people always ask me like, what do you like? People don't believe me when I say I listen to classic rock and like late 90s early 2000s like pop, like Destiny's Child and stuff, and like Aaliyah, like I love that stuff. But like, you know, sticking with like the rock genre, yeah, dude, like I live that stuff, and like it's just so imperfect, but it's cool.
Yeah, dude. I remember it's funny too because everybody, you know, obviously we play like pretty heavy modern stuff a lot of the time, so everybody just kind of assumes like, oh, you must listen to XYZ band, you know, but it's really just like, I'm like, my favorite bands are like Paramore, and like
Yeah, dude.
Paris,
Yeah.
and like as a kid I grew up on like Led Zeppelin and Godsmack and
I
like
love
all that
Godsmack,
like
yeah.
all that like early 90s like hard rock. Like my first concert was actually Godsmack and Rob Zombie.
That's a hell of a bill, yeah.
Dude, but that's basically what set me on this path of like music and wanted to play music and do music, and it wasn't ever like the modern metal of the time, quote unquote. You know? It was always
sure.
like, it was just whatever felt most inspiring and appropriate, and I think like real in a lot of aspects. You
Yeah,
know, like I think
for
that's
sure.
like something that's kind of been lost in a lot of the all digital stuff nowadays. It's like,
Yeah.
that's why when you send me stuff, if I have the time to, I'm always going to play drums on it, because I'm just
Yeah.
like, I want to inject that kind of humanity into it a little bit, you know, and like kind
Right,
of add
and I
to
love
that
it, man.
stuff.
Yeah, I love it every single time. It's like you never tell me if you're going to, and when you do, I'm like, it's like I mean, again, going back to it, it's like you cared enough to want to play drums on it, and like that just makes it more human, more real, more, you know, all the above. So like, yeah, that
100%.
adds a lot of no worries, man. It just I appreciate it. It just adds a level of like a layer of something I can't get out of like my situation. I can't play drums, like obviously.
yeah, of
like,
course.
You know what I
And
mean?
I mean-
Like it's cool that you do that.
Of course, dude. And you know, it's definitely not the easiest thing, but I've made it easy enough for myself to be able to do that kind of stuff. You know?
Yeah,
And that's
for sure.
why I enjoy having the option and stuff. But I guess speaking on that, how do you typically like come up with drum ideas?
Are you asking because sometimes it's a little weird?
No. I'm just
Like it's
I'm
not like feasibly. I don't have four hands.
No. Like it's just like it's a guitarist thing. Like I just
Yeah.
like because every time I've ever written music, it's from a drummer's perspective. You know, like I just
Yeah.
grew up doing that. That's how I came up. So my brain instantly goes to like the backbeat and what the backing instrumentals are doing. Whereas I feel like a lot of times guitar players, they're writing drums and bass and everything else from a guitarist perspective, which is typically more like rhythmic, sometimes melodic. You know, there's a lot more variances in what a guitar player can do
Yeah.
versus what a drummer does, you know.
Yeah. So I don't even know where I fit in between the two, but it's like I just always want my kick and snare to be awesome. like that's all I want. Like
that's
like,
the most important.
yeah, dude. Like if my kick, my MIDI kicks can line up with all the cool like guitar like chugs or cool moments, and then the snare hits either on like the 3 or like yeah, like if it goes like 1 2 3, or if it goes 1 2 3 4, like that's all I do. And like I just need China. I'm a big China guy. Love China. Like, and apart from that, that's really where that ends. It's not that intricate. And then I'm like, well, all right, it's got to have a fill. And then I'm like doing that, literally doing this. Like, does that seem feasible? And then I'll plug it in. I'm like, he'll figure it out. He knows what I'm trying to do.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, but that's where that ends, dude. Like I think I pay more attention to drums than one might think, because I always feel like the guitar is like third. Like it's drums and bass.
Really?
That's
Okay.
That's what. Like I write the guitar, but like my focus is on drums and bass.
Gotcha.
Like I feel like that's what makes things hit. You know, like just super impactful instruments. Literally drums impact, and then bass sonically impacts. So like, if those are aligned, the guitar is just like the filler, the icing on the cake.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Which most guitar players won't ever say. Like, we have to be the star of the show. For me, I'm just like, dude, I just want it to sound cool. And drums and bass sound cooler in terms of impact than guitars do. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where I come from as a drummer. It's like, as long as the foundational instruments, being like drums, bass, and oftentimes a rhythm guitar,
Yeah.
as long as the foundation is there and solid, everything else on top is, like you said, icing on the cake.
Yeah, exactly. Because, yeah. And like, from a guitar's perspective, like, we always want crushing low end. That's what we always say. But it's like, that's so not helpful in a
No.
mix. Like,
No.
As cool as it is, it's like, that's not our job, unfortunately. Like, and it's a bummer because low end's sick. Who doesn't love low end? But, yeah, I just always want my drums and bass to be, like, super sick. And then the guitar, I write the guitar part first, but, like, I want those instruments, the other instruments, to, like, really be the sonic feel, groove, and vibe of it all, in a way.
Gotcha. Yeah. And to kind of emphasize the point that you made as well, it's like I feel like some guitar players, they do think the show is all about them. Yeah. And that is reflected in their songwriting. It is like everything is like, it's like a guitar riff salad with solos and leads and everything on top. But with your stuff, it's always felt like appropriate songwriting with leads and solos on top of it.
Thanks, man.
It's not like a stroke show where you're like, oh, check out these 8 riffs, A, B, C, D, with XYZ solo on top of it, and bam, that's my song. It's like, no, it's like if you took away all the leads and the solos, this would still be an appropriate song arrangement.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that, and I'm very mindful of that. I like songs like just without vocals, whatever, but I like songs with like 3 good riffs. You give me 3 good riffs and a breakdown, like I'm set. Like it doesn't have to be, like that's all you need, bro. I always like revert back to what I think are 2 of the best metal songs ever, and that is Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit and Walk by Pantera. Both of those songs have like 2 riffs. 2.
Bow-wow-wow.
Yeah. And then Break Stuff is and then the lead up to the end is doo-doom, doo-doom, doo. That's it. That's the whole song.
Yep.
So like those are some of the best ever. And Limp Bizkit is cool now, but they weren't like 10 years ago, but like
no, it's weird how that band specifically had like, because I've always been a Limp Bizkit fan.
Like,
me too.
Never rode the train to hate at all ever.
Like I remember growing up on them, my uncles introduced me to them, and I was like, I shouldn't be listening to this as a child, but it's sick,
Yeah, dude.
And then like, the mid 2000s and 2010s came, and suddenly it was cool to hate Limp Bizkit. And I remember Golden Cobra came out, and I was like, this record's sick.
Yeah.
And everybody around me hated it.
Yep.
And now 10 years later, everybody loves it suddenly. And I'm like, where were you guys when you were shit talking? Like that same record.
It's funny. Yeah, I've never ever. I've always been waving the Limp Bizkit flag. Always.
That's so funny, dude.
Yeah.
But I guess just like last like recording thing. Do you place like any like limits on yourself regarding like writing time, recording, like because I feel like a lot of people like they will almost work on something forever instead of just being like, hey, I'm gonna give myself a week or a month, like do you do anything like that to prevent yourself from just burning out on the same thing forever?
I don't, but I can just tell when it's not working. Like I was saying, like some of my favorite stuff was written in a day, and that's a good day. But like I'll spend times like trying to come up with the initial riff, like I was talking about, and it just won't happen. Yeah. So then I just chalk it up for the day, or like for that segment of time, and maybe I'll go back in the evening or something. But I don't have any set pressure, like set times and schedules. It's just like I sit down. All right, I'm gonna create something. What's gonna happen? And 90% of the time, nothing happens, and that's okay. Like I've learned to like appreciate and understand that like it's okay to not come up with stuff, but when you do come up with stuff, it's pretty cool. But like I can tell pretty early on, like okay, I'm onto something, and it's just like, and then from there, like it just kind of steamrolls, and then I usually sit on it for a day, come back to it, and then like fine tune it. But the initial like inspiration and like initial like catalyst to starting that, like it's literally like within like 2 hours, 3 hours tops, maybe. Not even 2 hours, I would say is probably the limit for that.
Gotcha.
And I can just tell I'm onto something that I enjoy.
Because I'll work with some people who like they'll be like, hey dude, I'm gonna send you the demo this weekend, for example. This weekend comes and goes. Hey man, something came up, or I got a better idea, I'll send it to you next weekend. That weekend comes and goes, and it's just like I'm just like, sometimes I think like we as musicians can kind of get in our own way or get in our own head about stuff. And instead of just acknowledging, like you said, when something is or isn't working, just learn to kind of recognize that. And it's okay to throw away. Like, do you throw away a lot of material?
Oh, almost all of it. Truthfully. Yeah, dude. Like almost all of it. So it's like, that's so like it, but like it's okay because I got it out. I can that was not a good idea, and that's okay. But yeah, like I very rarely ever like rework something to make it where I like it. It's like if the initial off the rip is good, I keep it, and the other times like I'll come up with an arrangement. Sometimes I'll get through like a really elaborate arrangement, and then at the end of it, I'm just like, nah, just didn't quite do it for me, and then I just abandoned it, and that's okay. It's truly okay. But like I'm not married to riffs. I'm not married to songs. Like I was saying with you, like when you change stuff, and like if you like maybe chop something up or like cut out a segment or whatever, it's like, okay, like I'll write another riff tomorrow. Like it's just a thing. It's not that, as much as I love the things that I do make and all that, it's nothing that I can't do tomorrow.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And so, I think that's an important, like, obviously for you have a lot of experience under your belt and you do this on a daily basis. So it's easy for you to just like kind of come to that realization. But I think for anybody that's starting out or maybe doesn't have as much experience, you know, it's just a process. You know, you're going to write a lot of bad songs before you write a good song. You know, so it's important to just get through those bad ones as fast as you can, instead of, like you said, sticking with something that doesn't really excite you and trying to fix that. Like that's so, I feel like it's more creatively draining than just starting over. You know. Yeah,
you're just trying to tweak something that's not good to begin with.
Yeah, 100%. But I guess similar to that, do you ever feel like burnout? Like I know that's something that a lot of modern day musicians feel with like shows, writing, like the social media stuff, like basically being like a musician, a marketer, like a band manager, like your own promoter. Like it's an all-encompassing job. But do you feel it with all of the stuff that you do?
I'm burned out. I'm burned out literally every single day. but the alternative is to not be successful or to not try. So I will take being burned out over not doing it. You know, like it's exhausting, man. Like I put out like YouTube is my main source of income with the whole music thing, but like I didn't put out a video in like 2 days, and like I'm like freaking out, you know, because like it's like I got to get another one out. I have to do another one. I have to do something, and that's exhausting. But I'd rather do that than anything else. Or like Instagram, like I put out a video last night. I got to have another one out in 3 or 4 days, you know, for me to feel okay with what I'm doing. So, yeah, dude, I'm always burned out, but like, you know, like I feel like people are burnt out with jobs they don't like, you know, like everybody, like burnout's a part of life. So like, you know, no matter what you do, if you do it long enough, it does become work. So like, it never once ever holds me back or detracts me or hinders me at all. I just keep plowing through it as best as I can. Doesn't mean it's always good, but I'm still just trying and showing up, you know.
Yeah, dude, 100%. And I think it's important in those instances to just push through, you know.
Yeah. Just keep doing it. Because the alternative is to not do it, and I sure as hell don't want to do that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, I don't know. Well, I know you're like ex-military, but like I came up doing like manual labor stuff, you know. So it's just like, would I rather burn myself out on a daily basis doing that for 8 hours a day, or be in my studio and make content or learn how to play drums better and work on stuff, you know? And the answer is always going to be, well, I'd much rather be doing the stuff I actually want to be doing, you know? Because like you said, most people are stuck in day jobs or situations that they don't like. But, you know, music is going to be a job if you let it be a job. But, you know, what's the alternative? Going back to your day job?
Yeah. And some, you know, that's totally fine too. Like the day job, like that's totally fine. But, you know, you're going to be burnt out until you retire, just no matter what you're doing. Like, if there's never like, oh, you might have a day or two of being fully refreshed, but like it'll quickly go away. So like, yeah, you gotta just keep going, man. Just keep trying. Just keep 100%. Doing it.
And do you, like, more personal stuff, like do you have any like practice routines or exercises or anything that you like to do to kind of stay on top of playing?
So I figured out, like, when I teach lessons, in the evenings, and like I always tell people, I feel like there's like three facets of guitar playing. It's like literal like diligent practice, like scales. There's playing cover songs or just playing songs maybe that you wrote, just like the act of playing a song, playing a tune. And then three is creating. So like those are like three different mindsets for me. Mm-hmm. So I always tap into all three. Nice. At different, not at the same time, but like at different points. Like right now I'm very much into the playing other people's music in preparation for leaving for a tour coming up in March.
Yeah.
So like that's like my focus. I'm not really that creative right now, and I'm certainly not practicing. Like
yeah.
But like time on the fretboard is time on the fretboard. Like as long as you're doing something, you're gonna get something out of it. So like I don't really necessarily have something that like keeps me on my chops, but I think recording myself every day and playing to a click or playing to a fake drum track every day keeps me pretty sharp and in time as good as I can be. So that's something that I do. But yeah, I just always, as long as I'm doing one of those three things, that keeps me sharp, and that's enough to like keep me entertained and occupied.
Nice, dude. Yeah, because you know, I have friends who are longtime guitarists or people who I work with who reach out, and you know, I'll help them out. I'll send them some exercises or like some things to do, because oftentimes when everything is a possibility, nothing gets done because you don't know where to start, you know.
Right.
And what's worked for me in the drumming sense is, like you said, you have to split it up into three categories. And for me, it's like I always start with practices and exercises. I'm like, but I don't just like sit down and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to play whatever. It's like, oh, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to specifically work on, you know, double bass today, or I'm going to specifically work on like rudiments or whatever. And I just do that for a short period of time. And then I move on to like the actual playing part of like, oh, hey, I'm just going to jam some stuff, you know, get a feel for everything. And then the creative portion is also important, but it's just not something that I do all the time, you know? So it's like, it's okay to not do all of those things in one sitting. Yeah. You can kind of break it up and kind of do your own thing with it. But the important thing is, like you said, just setting that time aside to just spend time with your instrument.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you, like when you said you do like the practice stuff and then you play, is that in the same sitting, same time frame?
So typically, yeah, just because my studio is remote from where I personally live, it's like across town. So when I'm here, I do at least like 20, 30 minutes of like warm-ups and a specific series of exercises, just to get everything like nice and tight and, you know, make sure that I can hit, you know, double bass at XYZ tempos, you know, no problem. And then when that's all done, the reward is like my treat, you know, of like, oh, I get to just play whatever I want now. You know, I can pull up Spotify, play this song. I can film some videos for social media, you know, whatever. Yeah. That's like my treat time after I've put in the work, you know.
Right.
And then the creativity portion of it usually is just when I have bands in that need a drummer, or like when you send me stuff and I have like, I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to like actually sit down. I'm going to take his drum ideas and rewrite them the way I would, and now I have to perform them and edit them and do everything, you know. But that's the creative like part of it. And
for sure,
like that portion of it doesn't always get done, but I always try to do at least like the initial like 30-40 minute chunk every time I'm in here, just because I'm already here, I may as well, you know.
Right, for sure. Yeah. I was just curious because like I always am curious, and I love to learn about how other people operate, because, you know, I could take something away from what you do or whatever.
Yeah, of course, dude. But yeah, I definitely agree. I think it just falls into those three camps, and just being, you know, if you want to get better at something, you just have to put the time in.
Yeah.
And there's too many people out there who think, and I don't know if this irks you either. It's just something that has like progressively gotten worse for me over the years. But it's like when somebody comes to me and they're like, I've been playing this instrument for X years, like 10 years, you know?
Yeah.
And then they come in and they're not very good. And it's just like, well, how long have you actually been playing over the course of those 10 years? Because starting 10 years ago and playing consistently for 10 years are two different things.
Yes.
Because I'll have people that come in that, you know, they might only have a year or 2 or 3 years of experience under their belt, but they're vastly better than the other person just because they put the time and effort into it, you know?
For sure. Yeah. I feel like I'm one of those people. Cause I started playing 20 years ago, but like I had to take a huge chunk of my late teens, early adulthood to take a break from playing.
Yeah.
For like various reasons, different endeavors. So then like I've been playing every day again since 2016.
Yeah.
So that's not that long a time. Like what? It's 2020, 8 years now.
Yeah.
So like, you know, like,
that's a good chunk of time. That's a good chunk of time.
Hey, I feel better about myself now. But like, yeah, like I couldn't take my guitar, you know, overseas and stuff, and I was very busy with that, and which it was important to me at the time, and you know, it is what it is. But like, yeah, so yeah, I know what you're saying. It's like people sometimes it almost like maybe it's like makes them, it sounds good, rolls off the tongue.
That's what I'm getting at. Like, yeah. They use it more as like a selling point to, oh, I'm this good because I've been playing for X years versus like, you know, the people like us don't really care how long you've been playing. It's more of like how good are you in the moment, or how good are you like when you need and when the time calls, you know.
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
like that's more important to me than like, oh, I started way back in 1990, you know, like, like, it's like, whatever, dude. Like, how good are you today?
Yeah. Yeah, dude, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so, like, I think I've been collectively playing, like, maybe, like, I don't know, 15 years out of those 20. So, like,
nice,
but,
dude.
You know, with different chunks. But, like, yeah, I just think sometimes people, maybe they just, it's like a selling thing. Don't worry about me underperforming because I've been playing for 20 years or whatever.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I guess just to wrap it all up, if you had one piece of advice for the aspiring guitarist at home, like, what would it be?
I always just say to just do something every day. And when I say do something, specifically put yourself out on the internet every single day. Everything that I've been fortunate enough to achieve and all the people I've been fortunate enough to meet has literally came from the internet. I've met 0 people in person playing guitar. Now that's just my own experience, but like I just feel like people, and it's such a shame, people are very afraid to like share themselves to the world.
Yeah.
And like it's such a bummer, dude, because like, you know, the internet's pretty gnarly and you get some pretty interesting comments, and I think that's a huge detractor for people, especially wanting to start from ground zero.
Yeah.
But like when I started YouTube, dude, like I would get like 8 views on a video, and I was so stoked. I was so stoked, and like, you know, like my first year I got maybe 300 subscribers, which, you know, that was my trajectory, and I'm super, you know, thankful and proud of that. And like now coming up on like 85K in 7 years, like I always just think, like, if I could tell myself that 7 years ago, like in 2024, you're still going to be doing it, and 2, you're at 85K, like I would be super stoked. But I realized that, like, to get to where I needed to be, I just had to just constantly put myself out there and like hone my craft, not only with playing, but hone my craft of marketing and like my shtick and like what I do. 'Cause like my Instagram is a very specific, methodical setup every time I play. It's just I kind of leaned into like what I like to create and call it how it is, how I look. I look kind of I look kind of interesting, you know, like so like I leaned into that, and that worked for me. But like whatever it is that you provide, because everybody has the opportunity to put themselves out there and reach people and you know, achieve their goals however long it takes. It's irrelevant. If you get there, you get there. But you just have to just put yourself out there on the internet, man. Like
100%.
You have the entire world in your pocket, and anybody who creates stuff is like more often than not into, like, they're interested in meeting new people and, call it how it is, expanding their brand as well, networking. And
100%.
That may be a little taboo, but like I think we can all admit that there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, that's all indicative of the internet. You just have to put yourself out on the internet, bro.
Yeah, dude. And, you know, it's, I feel like, especially nowadays, people feel almost like they almost feel like their content isn't good enough because they see people like yourself or, you know, other YouTubers and like content creators who have these like massive, like the highest of quality videos, but what they don't see is where you started, you know?
Yeah. and like, you know, I kind of hit a plateau of like, in terms of like visuals and creating. It's like, I haven't gotten exponentially better in a long time. Like, like from like, I don't know if I put numbers on it, like from like 2021 to 2024, I've been doing literally the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But like in those 3 years, I was able to hone the craft and the presentation and all that stuff. And I got it dialed in pretty well. But like, I don't have expensive cameras. I don't have like a big elaborate studio. I don't have any of this stuff. I have the drive and the passion to want to create and like see what happens when I put this out in the world. Just to see what 100%. Happens. And like, that's still the biggest, like, it's like it's addicting, and it's also like, it's not scary is not the right word, but it's like, it's just like, what's going to happen? The unknown of like, is this going to tank, or is this going to, you know, get in the algorithm, and then you're going to have 1 million people tell you love it and 2 million people tell you how much they hate it.
Yeah.
And like, that's
it's just
cool.
How it's going to be.
Yeah.
It's just how it's going to be. It's just how it's going to be. You got to not be afraid of that stuff.
Ah, dude, I've never met a single hater to this day in person. Not even anybody even lukewarm on me.
Yeah.
Like, dude. Everybody's like super just, not that everybody's like ecstatic to meet me, but I'm saying like, I've never gotten the slightest bit of shade from somebody coming up to me or whatever. Yeah. Like, and like that made me really like, it continues to reassure, not that I had any doubts, but like it just, like when I was at NAMM this past weekend, like several people came up to me throughout the show, and like those moments we shared together, I got to meet people and vice versa. And like after I break contact from those people, I'm just like, wow, like I'm doing exactly what I need to be doing, because people are interested and are excited to take 5 seconds to take a photo with me. Like,
yeah, dude.
They only knew I'm just this dude from Philadelphia. You know what I mean? I'm not, like,
dude, I feel the same way.
Yeah, exactly. Man. Yeah, like I had that feeling towards you when I met you. Like I was like, dude, it's so great to meet you, man. Can I get a picture with you?
Dude, it's so crazy. Just because, like you said, just don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Like, I've been on YouTube for a very long time, and you know, it just like yourself, it's been a very slow growth and burn from the beginning, you know. But I just, like, I've never looked at it and been like, man, I need to hit something to get 1 million views and all these subscribers and everything. It's just like, I'm just doing it because I want to do it. And every opportunity that I've ever gotten was because of those videos or because I put myself out there. And you know, even when I don't think it applies, like for studio people who come in and they're like, oh, we want to work with you because, you know, your recordings sound good. But they're like, oh, by the way, our drummer grew up watching you on YouTube and this and that. And it's just like, I'm like, really? Like these videos from like 5 or 6 years ago that, you know, didn't get a ton of views, but they were the people watching. And those people are the ones that ultimately reach out and are a tangible human that you can have a conversation with, man. You know? Like all it takes is one person.
And I know, and like, you know, that's coming full circle. That's literally why we're having this very conversation right now. You know, it's all indicative of your channel. Like, you know, like I was enamored by your playing, and I was just like, I need to shoot my shot with this dude. Like this, I would love to work with this guy. And like, yeah, man. So like, it's so cool how like, if we could take a like, it's so cool like how that all like I feel like a distant kind of like relative to like the Texas metal family a little bit, dude. like you and Thomas and like the UABB guys. Like I love you guys so much. You guys are so awesome, and it's all derivative of the internet and just like putting myself out there and vice versa. It's just like such a cool thing, man. Like I talk to Thomas like a couple times a month now. Like,
dude.
Through you, you know, it's so cool.
Dude. It's just crazy how that stuff works out, and you know, you see how small the music circles really are when you put yourself out there and you finally get the chance to meet everybody who's like a part of it, you know. Like the same people that were in the music scene when I was a teenager touring, like they're still there. They're still around. They might be in different bands, or they might be doing different music stuff, or they might not be touring, but they're like studio musicians or studio owners and things like that, but those are still the same people, like 10 years later, 15 years later, and they're still like, for lack of a better term, like the gatekeepers and like the people that like are like the people that you meet to meet everybody else. You know? But once you're in and people know who you are, you're in.
And then just do your best to be a good person. And but that's my favorite thing about it is like, off the top of my head, I can't think of a bad interaction. I'm sure if I racked my brain, but like everybody you meet, man, they're just people. Like, they're all just people, and like everybody's just trying their best to get through life and do this music thing as best as we all can. And that was a huge joy once I was slowly starting to get into that world, to see that like the people that I looked up to and continue to do so. Yourself, for example, seriously, like it was just such a cool.
No, thanks, dude.
Oh no, it's all good. But it's like, it's just like, this is it's so nice that like it's not what you would think it could potentially be.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, if you're just a good person and your heart's in it and you have the creativity to do all of this stuff, then you've already made it a lot further than a lot of people would have, just taking that first step, And, the people that are like at step 100, they all had to start somewhere, and everybody had to take that first step. But if you're scared to take that first step, or you're worried that you're going to be perceived negatively or this and that, like, you can make up a million excuses to not do something, or you can just do it and take a chance, because you never know where you're going to end up.
Yeah, you never know. I'm playing with For the Fallen Dreams in March.
I know, dude. That's so
again.
crazy.
Again, like I'm. How thankful I am for that. I still listen. I first found them like 16 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, dude. It's crazy. Likewise, I was like an avid listener like throughout my teens and like into like high school and college. Like, not that I finished college, but I went.
Yeah.
but yeah, dude, I was like, they were like one of the like bands that everybody like looked to and aspired to. Like that like really changed the way that scene like did music,
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, dude, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But dude, I am so proud of you and all that you have
man.
accomplished, and I am so stoked to not only know you but be your friend and be someone that can create and trust you. If there's anything that you ever need from me, I'm always happy to help, But yeah, like I said, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I very much appreciate you doing all this, and it was just awesome to chat with you and kind of go over all of this stuff.
And I appreciate you too, man. It's cool that half a decade later, like you and I are like legitimate friends and like working together. Like,
yeah, dude.
pretty consistently. I keep you busy, and I'm just
awesome.
super proud of you, and like just to see, I've seen you like on tour. We've met in San Antonio. Like, it's just, we continue to do these things together, and I'm just so proud of you continuing to inspire everybody else as well as myself. It's such a joy to see you continue to succeed as well, dude.
Thanks, man. It means a lot.
No worries,
But yeah,
bro.
dude, much love. Thank you again so much for doing this. Talk to you soon, all right?
Sounds good, man. Later, bud.
All right. Later, bud.